Easiest, cheapest, to more expensive ways to improve your RAG-based models. This video will provide you with recent techniques to improve your RAG-based systems. So you've just trained a RAG-based model. It works fantastically well and you cannot wait to tell your friends or even colleagues. You're absolutely astonished how well it works for your data. But you still think it can be improved. You could probably do more, and you probably thought about building a UI or even adding a memory to conversate with your chat agent. But really, it's the retrieval aspect that will most likely improve your end generations. And this video, I will show you exactly which type of techniques you could potentially use. Now we're going to look into two different types of techniques. We're going to look into simple, cheap, and effective, and also a bit more on the harder and more expensive techniques. So the first one, when it comes to simple and effective RAG techniques, it's called long context reordering. Oftentimes, LLMs can get blind and focus on the beginning or at the end of a retrieve passage. This is a known problem when it comes to LLMs. For generation models to focus better, you could reorder the most relevant retrieve documents in the beginning and at the end of the list. Now, some of the pros and cons of this is that it's very, very easy to set it up and implement using LangChain or other Llama index APIs. But the cons is it's a bit of an experimental setup. It may or may not work with the dataset, but it's definitely worth giving it a shot, considering how simple it is. Talking about context, choosing the right context is very important when it comes to RAG-based systems. When you have large chunk embeddings, it's hard for LLMs to find the right context. So it's very important to have the right chunk sizes. It's usually better to have smaller chunk embeddings rather than larger ones, so that LLMs can have an easier time finding the most relevant. And also sending a handful of retrieve documents is typically enough. However, finding the right chunk size will require many iterations and experimentations. But the thing is, APIs like LangChain and Llama Index actually allows you to set up and experiment with different chunk sizes quite easily. But it can take a bit of time and effort. But on the other hand, it can actually help improve response times, relevancy, and also faithfulness of the end generations. So it's definitely worth trying. Now, another way to increase relevant context retrieval is actually having metadata to your chunks. This is metadata filtering or self-curing, as LangChain calls it. But essentially, you have metadata for each of your chunks, so when you actually retrieve, you retrieve on those metadata instead of the entire chunk. But then those entire chunks will be fed into the LLMs for the end generation. Again, a quick and dirty way of boosting performance. Now, we move on to a bit more advanced techniques. Now, moving on to more harder and more expensive techniques, one of them is small to big. Llama Index calls it small to big and LangChain calls it parent document retriever, but they both are the same thing. Sometimes LLMs can have a hard time retrieving from a large amount of context. This can be relevant if retrieving from a large number of pages from a PDF document, for example. Small to big solves that problem by having a smaller passage or number of smaller passages from a larger page or chunk with reference to a larger page number. This allows having a more specific embedding for different topic to be retrieved upon. Now the benefit is that it leads to more precise retrieval and avoids the lost in the middle problem. One of the downsides that I can think of is that it depends how well your embeddings model is for your data, which may determine how well your retrieval is, but this is definitely a performance boost or can be a performance boost for your retrieval model. For our next advanced technique, we have multi-document agents. Most naive RAGs look into one document for answering. Multi-document agents is exactly what it sounds like. You're querying between different types of documents at the same time. Now, this actually requires a bit of work to set it up, but thankfully there are a lot of guides online that help you do that. This is probably more harder or expensive technique in the list. Some models may not know your domain knowledge. A guaranteed way to get better prompt or retrieve results is for the model to know what data you're working with, and fine-tuning can help with that. This can be done with the data you've collected before, or you already have it in your company or organization, or maybe you can even generate synthetic data. The obvious benefit of this is that you can have better retrieval and better generation. However, the downside is it can be quite expensive because you may need a lot of GPU power and compute resources to train it. Not to mention, if you have not done this type of work before, this can be quite time consuming to get yourself started with this. Okay guys, I hope you guys found this useful. If you guys did, make sure you subscribe. I try to make the most complex AI information easy to understand. If you're a company trying to integrate your company data with AI systems, make sure you get in touch. Other than that, I will see you in my next video. Have a nice day.